Hi everyone, I hope all of you are keeping well, wherever in the world you may be. Welcome back to the Money Master HQ show, where we discuss all things money, success stories, and mindset. And today we've got an incredible guest with us who is a top speaker in the world, and I'm really looking forward to this interview. Our guest is Nick Prefontaine, a renowned motivational speaker, founder, and CEO of Common Goal. He's here to share his journey, his powerful step system, which you all should listen to, and how he helps people overcome trauma to reach their limitless potential. Hi, Nick. How are you?
Hi, Shihan. I am terrific, and I'm even better now that I'm with you here on the show. I've been looking forward to this for a little bit now.
It's my pleasure, Nick. And whereabouts in the world are you?
I'm in Newport, Rhode Island.
All right, that's nice. So, Nick, would you like to introduce yourself to our audience? What's your story to where you are today?
Sure. Yeah, sure. So my name's Nick, as you already covered so eloquently. As far as my story and what goes back to my origin story, how I got started, it all goes back to a fateful day. Back in 2003, I was at ski club with all my friends, all my class, and going on the way to the bus, we all brought our gear so we wouldn't miss a precious moment so we could get ready on the bus. So we wouldn't miss a precious moment once we got to the mountain with, oh, you gotta go inside, get ready. So we got to the mountain, we were all ready to go. And then going up on the chairlift, we noticed that it was very icy because it had been raining previously earlier in the day. So we noticed people were wiping out everywhere. Needless to say, it wasn't our first time. Wasn't our first time on skis and snowboards. So we were excited. Got to the top, took a breath of that crisp winter air, and confidently charged towards the biggest jump in the terrain park. And then going up to the jump, I caught the edge of my snowboard on the snow going up the jump, and that kind of threw me off balance. And I was forced to go off the jump off balance. I was told later that I landed on my head. I wasn't wearing a helmet because I usually brought it every day, and I just, for whatever reason, I didn't that day. I didn't think anything would happen. So I later learned that I wasn't wearing a helmet, and I pieced together the events based on people that were there that day, and the doctors and everyone surrounding me. So the only protection that my head had was the pair of goggles that I was wearing. And at the time I wore the goggles that I was wearing were very padded, that they were very thick. They had a lot of padding. So I learned that with each impact, not only did they brace my initial fall, but as I continued to roll down the mountain, they moved mysteriously or not so mysteriously, depending on what you believe. I believe everything happens for a reason. So when I learned that after, I wasn't surprised, because there were several things that broke for me that day, Shihan, that enabled me really, and are a big part of the reason why I'm here talking to you today. The first one was my goggles. The second one, they wanted to bring a helicopter to the mountain to rush me to the hospital, and they couldn't because it was too windy. So they sent in an ambulance, and out of all the paramedics that were in the area, there was only one who could intubate right on the spot, and I needed that to be able to breathe. Lucky for me, he was one of the paramedics that showed up to the mountain that day. And the third thing, which is really the most important, my mom, and I used to always credit, up until a couple of months ago, I used to always credit my parents. And I would say, oh, my parents did this, my parents did that. My dad said, he stopped me. I was on his podcast a couple months ago. He stopped me and he said, I don't want to take credit for that. That was your mom. So when I was resting in a coma. So I was in a coma in the intensive care unit. And the doctors came into my room to share the not so, as you can imagine, not so good news. And it just kept getting worse and worse for me, especially in the early going. They walked in my room and right next to me, no fault. They weren't to blame. It was just, they were doing their job. They went to share with my parents what the prognosis was, what happened and everything. And my mom stopped them. She said, no, not in front of him, because she understood, Shihan, that even though I was in a coma, I was still taking in information. So she made the doctors step outside the room. And then once they were outside the room, that's where they shared. They said, look, Nick's been in a snowboarding accident. He landed on his head, wasn't wearing a helmet. Based on the impact alone, he's probably going to be out for 7 to 10 days. However, he already has swelling in his brain. So we're worried, the doctors were worried, that if he wakes up and panics and worries, where am I? Who are you people? How did I get here? What happened? The swelling in my brain would increase and then I would have died. So they had to partially induce me into a coma. I was in that coma for 3 weeks. I really don't remember a month. And I've actually seen videos of myself, Shihan, in the intensive care unit at the hospital. And I have my eyes open. I'm looking around. However, I have no conscious memory of that moment when my eyes were open. And it's really interesting to me because I went back a couple years later after my accident. I spoke. That was one of the first places I spoke in 2005 at the hospital. They had a groundbreaking ceremony and I spoke at that. Before the groundbreaking ceremony, I went up to the ICU, the intensive care unit, where I spent time, where I was in my coma when I first got in the accident. And I was walking around the unit and I was like, Jesus, this looks so familiar. Everything from the layout of the room, right down to the faces of the nurses and doctors. I was like, I feel like I've been here. I feel like I know you, but I just couldn't put my finger on it. And so I unconsciously or subconsciously, I always get those two confused. I wasn't able to consciously remember it, but I had some memory of it subconsciously or unconsciously because it all looked familiar to me.
Yeah.
It was like the lights were on, but no one was home kind of thing. So a month after my accident, I'm sorry, I'll take a breath there, Shihan.
No, worries, Nick. Nick, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we are super glad that you're here with us and you're sharing this story with us. You're inspiring a lot of people to overcome trauma, their difficulties in life. And what a story it's been, I mean, since your recovery. You're healing people. It's been a great story, Nick. I mean, it's glad that, it wasn't, it didn't end up, it could have easily have been a different story for you, but we're glad that, things went off well from there. So how was the recovery process since then, Nick?
Well, let me first say, Shihan, me too. I'm glad too. People always say that to me.
Everything happens for a reason. So yes,
Yeah,
that's
so I was after about a month after remember I said that I was in the coma for 3 weeks. However, I really don't remember a month because it was a partially induced coma. So a month after my accident, I was transported to a rehab hospital in Boston. And that's where I began my journey of having to learn how to walk, talk, and eat again. So one of the things that the doctors also told my parents is, look, he's probably not going to be able to walk, talk, or eat again. So because my mom made the doctor step outside my room to share that, none of that got into my mind. Even though I was in a coma, I didn't know any better. So then it allowed me just to treat it like any other situation, Shihan. I was able to, as soon as I was able to get up, I guess you could say figuratively speaking, not physically, but just get up and keep working, keep getting better every day. And it was a month after my accident that I really have my first memories, and that was at the 3rd floor at the rehab hospital in Boston that I was transported to. And that was reserved for the most critical of cases. So I initially, if you can believe it, it wasn't like I was in a coma and then I wake up and all right, everything's all better. I had lost something like over 20 pounds of body weight. I was 160 pounds and I was down to like in the 130s because I was unable to eat. I was being fed through a tube. I had like no strength. I lost all that strength. So literally to sit up in bed for minutes at a time would take two or three nurses supporting me. And even then I was sweating profusely like I had just run a marathon or something. Then right around this time, it was when I started utilizing the step system unknowingly to not only make a full recovery, but run out of the hospital. So I overheard right around this time frame when I got transported to the rehab hospital in Boston, I heard my parents talking to the doctors. I still couldn't talk. So I heard them talking to the doctors saying that, all right, what do we have to do to make sure Nick makes a full recovery? I heard in the back of my head, no, you're going to run out. So then running out of the hospital became our common goal. And then it was right around this time that I started unknowingly utilizing the step system to not only make a full recovery, but run out of the hospital. And STEP is an acronym
What does
that
it, Nick?
it stands for support. So I'll give you and your listeners a like a 10,000-foot view. It stands for support. So make sure that you have the support of your family and friends around you. This is going to have you falling back on relationships that you built prior to your setback. T is trust. Trust that once you take your first step, your next step is always going to be available to you. And this is kind of multifaceted because this is also trust that you have this calling inside of you for a reason. So remember I said, I overheard my parents talking to the doctors saying, all right, what do we have to do to make sure Nick makes a full recovery? In the back of my head, I heard, no, you're going to run out. So then running out became my common goal that we all were working towards. E is energy. Maintaining your energy allows your body's natural ability to be able to heal itself. And medication has the tendency, there's a time and a place for it, but it has a tendency to get in the way of this, the body's natural ability to heal itself. And after being in a partially induced coma, you can probably imagine, Shihan, I had a lot of drugs pumped into me. I needed that. I needed modern medicine. I needed that pumped into me to help keep me alive. However, after I came out of the coma, I always share this story because it's so interesting. Early on in my recovery, and this was before I could talk audibly, I would always have either my dad or my grandfather or one of my uncles stay with me at night, and my mom would be with me during the day. They were part of my support. This particular night, early in my recovery, my grandfather was staying with me, and I got up in the middle of the night and I had to go to the bathroom. I still wasn't clear to walk. So I tried to get his attention, and because he couldn't hear me, he didn't wake up. So then I was able to get down off my hospital bed and hobble to the bathroom and go to the bathroom and get back, and nothing happened. However, the hospital found out and they freaked out because that's liability, as you can imagine. And they said, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to give him this many cc's of this medication, that many cc's of this medication, and that should chill him out so he can sleep. And my mom's like, no, you're not going to do that. Just tell him not to do that. So they told me to just don't do that. Make sure you get someone's attention to help you to the bathroom. And that was so important that I had that advocate with me every step of the way, because without that, they would have pumped me with more medication, more drugs, and who knows if I would be here like I am today. Then P is persistence. So persistence, once you take your first step, keep getting up every day and taking your next step, no matter how small. And by continuing to move forward every day, you are building an unstoppable momentum. So this was a system that I used to run out of the hospital. And if you fast forward a little less than 60 days later, after being transported to the rehab hospital, I did run out of the hospital. I realized my goal. However, really, it wasn't like my work was done. I had to continue to go to outpatient therapy for 6 months for the same three things: physical, occupational, and speech therapy, in order to be fully cleared. I also, because I missed so much time for school, had to be tutored all summer long in order to continue on to high school with the rest of my classmates. And looking back on it, it's a little surreal to me, Shihan, that only 18 months after finishing rehab from my snowboarding accident and being in a coma, I got my start in real estate. And that was door knocking pre-foreclosure doors. So homeowners that had received a notice of default letter from the bank, and the bank still hadn't foreclosed on the house. So I would get a list, and I would have a leave behind that I would leave if no one was there. And they gave me a script, and I said, all right, knock yourself out. I had just got my driver's license. So if you can picture this, no one coached me on this. They just gave me a script, told me where to find these people. So in my head, I was like, all right, well, I can only do this for 1 day a week because I have to go to school during the week. Unfortunately, I would have rather been working. So I would go to the areas of the city and these cities where I could hit the most amount of doors in a day, where they were right next to each other. And it's probably not the best areas to buy property in, but I was 16. I had no one, I didn't consult anyone on this. I just wanted to get the most amount of reps, so I could improve and just get more face time and more reps in. And shortly after starting this, I really wasn't seeing a lot of success. However, I got reps and I got time going, and I tried some things. I knew what didn't work. And then my dad flew my cousin Mike and I out to California to shadow the #1 person that was having success with these notice of default doors. And once I saw his change, his approach and how it differed from mine, I changed immediately. And then when I got home, I started implementing what I learned and seeing a lot of success. And we actually owned houses in this city for years, even after I graduated high school.
Did you have a liking for real estate previously, or was this the first? Did you have a liking for real estate previously, or was this the first time that you explored such an investment option?
I grew up in a family real estate business. So when I was little, my dad was a builder, then he was a realtor, then he was a real estate agent, then he was an investor, then a realtor. And like all throughout my life, my parents did fix and flip projects. They did raise the roof projects where they buy a ranch and raise the roof. So I was around it my entire life. So it was just natural course, because right around then I started getting an interest in real estate. Was the book that did it for me was Cash Flow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki. I picked that up off my dad's bookshelf, one of the books that he had. And I came to my dad and said, how can I get started? How can I help? And it was right around the time that I was just starting to get my driver's license. And he was like, well, this would be perfect. You can help us be a bird dog and knock on these doors for us. So I was like, great. It was awesome. So I could knock up to 70 doors in a day, and I still legally couldn't have any friends in my car driving with me, but I could could go and door knock 70 doors in a day.
And by this
That
time, Nick, by this time, you had fully recovered from your injury. There were no physical issues. There were no restrictions in terms of your lifestyle. Is that right?
fully, yeah, exactly. Yep, I fully recovered, and just because it was something that happened to me, I feel like it was something that happened to me young when I was 14, when I was growing up. It was just, it happened to me when I was growing up. And the way I look at it is, oh, I don't know. I just got up and I just dealt with it. And here I am today. I really I didn't connect the dots on like how big. Everyone always told me like, oh, it's so courageous. I never got it. I never understood. I was like, well, it was something that happened to me when I was younger, and I made it to where I am today. However, I saw that develop a little bit more further in my life, other instances of that. So after graduating high school, I got my real estate license. And so when I was 19, I got my real estate license, and this is a great time to be a realtor. Passed the real estate test in March of 08. So I know, great time to be a realtor in the United States. Kidding, totally joking on that. The market, the market was crashing at that time. So that was the only market I knew though. So a lot of people would lament and be like, oh, it used to be so easy and it's so hard. And I was like, what do you mean? This is just the market. And still to this day, I compare everything to how that market was 2008 to 2012. So whenever someone says, oh, the market's bad now, or there's a slowdown or something, I'm like, what are you talking about? It just doesn't make sense to me, because I compare everything to that. So I was a full-time realtor, helping buyers and sellers for 6 years, and that was the only thing I was doing. And then in 2014, my dad approached me and said he needed help with marketing all these properties that he was buying non-conventionally, without using big down payments of his own, big investor down payments, and without signing personally on loans. He needed to, and some of the ways he was buying was like a lease purchase, closing on a house subject to someone's existing loan, or closing on someone's home with owner financing if they didn't have any debt on it. So he was getting all these properties and they were adding up, and then he didn't know what to do with them because he needed help with the marketing. So he approached me to see if I would help, and I was like, no, I got my own thing going on here. I'm successful helping buyers and sellers. And luckily he asked me a few times, Shihan. So I finally came around to the idea and thought, okay, I can do it right alongside being a realtor.
Yeah.
So I started helping him at the end of 2014 with marketing all of his properties. That turned into, oh shoot, what are we going to do? We need to, I need help with answering all these buyer inquiries, these buyer calls. So when I first started helping him, my income with him was maybe 10% of my income, and my income as a realtor was 90%. Over the course of 13 months, it shifted where I was making the majority of my income with him as an investor. And it didn't make sense for me to keep my real estate license anymore. So in January of 2016, I let go of my real estate license and joined him full time. There's also an important part that I kind of alluded to, foreshadowed earlier in our conversation, which was, when I was growing up, I had the accident, I dealt with it, and I was like, all right, yeah, I did what anyone else would have done. However, in 2012, I developed a voice issue, and I was looking everywhere for answers for almost a year, and I couldn't go into all these doctors.
Was it related to the injury, or was it something different?
I think it was, and I still think it was, because the way I kind of learned about my accident, and because I had when I had my accident, the entire left side of my body was paralyzed. So then when I was recovering, they would put so much attention on the left side and getting the left side to work. And so I still have no issues with the left side of my body. However, my right side of the body, when I go to use it, like fine motor skills, like writing, I would write with my right hand prior to my accident. After my accident, I couldn't anymore because it would take too much time and energy, because when I go to use my right hand to write, I would have minor tremors that just made it difficult and a lot of energy. So I was just like, when I was in the hospital, I was looking at it and I was like, well, why can't I just switch to writing with my left hand instead of my right hand? So that's what I did. So then developing that voice issue, the way that it was explained to me, you have your what is it called? The vocal cords. So
Yeah.
you have two vocal cords, and when you go to talk or yell, they come together and then they relax after you're done. Well, I got in this habit of, in 2012, I would be you're supposed to chant your scripts to get your energy up and to get like pumped up before you get on the phone to prospect for new business. Now, I like to take everything to the extreme. So what I did was actually scream my scripts. I did this for 7 full months. And the way it was explained to me by the voice specialist that I finally talked to was, you were screaming. You were screaming, yelling, and your vocal folds would, your vocal cords would go together, and then when they're supposed to relax, the right one got stuck. So then over the course of, I finally wound up in a voice specialist office. This is where that information came from. In August of 2013, he explained it this way. And then I had to start receiving Botox injections into my vocal folds for 7 years, along with speech therapy, in order to talk. And I couldn't even talk. I couldn't even speak. It was hard to get the words out, if that makes sense. And although he told me that he doesn't know if it's from my accent, I know kind of intuitively that it was, just because of what I said about like the right vocal fold, the right vocal cord wasn't able to relax. So yeah, then overcoming that, and I think it was a time thing too, because my accident start to finish was less than 90 days. So it was just something that happened to me, something I dealt with. However, this whole ordeal, my voice issue, I started receiving Botox injections in August of 2013. I was really dealing with it. I started to notice something was wrong in August of 2012. For 8 years, I dealt with it. And the last Botox injection I had was February 13th of 2020. That was definitely enlightening, because each time I would go back to get another Botox treatment, I would be able to stretch out the time longer and longer. So it showed me during that because it's a long process. I had to, there were times when I gave myself permission to have a pity party for 5 minutes, like, oh, I've been working at this and it's not getting better. But I just kept going. I kept getting treatments. So back to the system. I made sure I had my support. My support again was my family, my mom and dad, and everyone around me. I trusted that once I took that first step, my next step was always going to be available to me. And then during that process, every time in between the Botox injections, I would get natural treatments, which I still get to this day. Cranial sacral massage, Tui Na massage, to relax my body. I get them in between the Botox treatments, and that allowed me to make it last longer and longer.
Mhm.
And I still get them to this day. It was really, it's really interesting because I spoke about how I had that voice in the back of my head when I heard the doctors and my parents talking, and I was like, no, you're gonna run out. So I heard that in the back of my head. And in addition to that, since my accident, I've always had this voice in the back of my head, whatever I'm doing, no matter how successful I'm being, whether it's doors as a real estate aid, door knocking, real estate agent, is, yeah, that's great, Nick, but what you really need to be doing is telling your story from stage and helping individuals get through their trauma and thrive with the rest of their lives. So I've always had that voice. Then it was almost exactly 3 years ago
Mhm.
when I reached out to someone that saw me speak. So someone saw me speak at one of our events in September of 2019. She approached me after I spoke, and it was only a 25-minute talk, gave me her card, said, I'm not trying to steal you from your dad. However, if you're ever looking to bring your story to another level so it has the maximum amount of impact and you can help the most amount of people, I can introduce you to a few mentors and speaker bureaus and everything like that to kind of fine tune your message. Well, I wasn't ready because I was still going through the final throes of my voice issue. I still had a couple of treatments left that I had to get. However, I always held on to her card. And in May of 2021, I finally reached out to her and said, all right, I'm ready. And since I made that call, she introduced me to her mentor, who's now become my mentor, Trisha Brook. And since I made that call, there has been no voice in the back of my head.
Wow.
So what that's evidence of to me is that I'm doing exactly what I was put on this earth to do.
Absolutely. What an incredible story. I mean, from almost losing your voice to becoming a top speaker in the world. I think that says it all. I think mindset plays a big role, isn't it, in these kind of situations, Nick?
Absolutely, yeah. I 1000% agree with that. Yep.
When we talk about the step system itself, although whilst you were recovering, obviously it wasn't formulated as such as the step system itself, but obviously you were practicing, the things that were within the step system. So when exactly did you formulate the step system as the step system?
Sure. So I kind of like teased it a little bit. When I was going through my voice issue, there were some dark times, maybe I would say 1, 2, maybe 3 dark times where I was just like, oh, I've been working at this and it's not getting better. And this has been going on for like 5 years now. And as I said, I would give myself a pity party. However, I just kept going. So the persistence, I just kept going. I just kept getting those natural treatments, the Tuina massage, the cranial sacral massage. And I just kept showing up every day and doing what the doctors said to me, which was do your voice exercises twice a day, morning and night. I kept getting the treatments, natural treatments, and I trusted that by doing those things, I was going to get better, because even though it wasn't as fast as I wanted to, it was improving. And as long as it was improving, I had hope. Once I got to the end of that and I stopped having, it wasn't like I got the last treatment, I walked out of the hospital, I was like, all right, I'm done. It was an ordeal that year. That was COVID. So
Oh,
that year was a battle for me mentally, just because I thought I needed a Botox injection, and I would call and they'd say, oh, we're not doing those right now because of COVID. So I like had a whole internal dialogue, like freaking out. Well, oh my God, I need this. And then it was right around that time that I was like, you know what? No, I don't. I don't need that. And it was my reliance on that And it was at the end of that. So I'd call it into 2021 when I realized, all right, I have something here. I've done it once. I did it to recover from my snowboarding accident, and I did it, and I'm more proud of it. I got over my voice issue too. I was like, I have something here that I have to share with everyone. And that's where the step system came from. And it was my mentor and I who worked on that together. And she was able to pull it out of me when I was working with her one-on-one. Shihan, I was so frustrated with her at one point because I did work one-on-one with her back in, after getting introduced to her. I ended up working with her end of 2021 and into 2022. There was a time she goes, yeah, all right, so you got in your snowboarding accident, you were in a coma for 3 weeks, and you ran out of the hospital. How'd you do it? I said, I don't know. I just got up and kept working every day and did the best I could. And I made it. She goes, no, not good enough. How'd you do it? And she asked that question, I think 7 to 10 times, seven or 10 layers deep, to a point where I was frustrated. I go, I don't know. Stop asking me. This is not productive. Stop asking me. And she was the one that pulled it out of me. My one-on-one work with her. And since she has pulled it out of me, I see it everywhere in my life. I see my life and everything I've gone through and accomplished as the step system. I see that framework kind of overlaid on top of everything that I've gone through, and helping people now, working with clients. I'm speaking at a lot of brain injury associations at their annual conferences. So all those people, when I share my message, because in my keynote, I have a couple of versions of my keynote, a 45 and a 60-minute version. I'm actually teaching the step system, and I get to like jump down into the audience and really have some fun to talk about stories from when I was in the hospital, and to, once I give those as example, they're able to better apply it to their lives. So not only there, but also working our one-on-one work with people as well.
You're doing a great job, Nick. I mean, sharing your story and inspiring people. And I think sometimes you need that little push to get that hidden gem out of you, isn't it? And I think that's exactly what your mentor did. And I'm glad so that you're able to share it with the world. Now, during this period, since the time you've become a speaker, I've seen that you've delivered quite a lot of keynote presentations and speeches, and I think one was the Oxford talk. So just talk us through a few of those speeches, Nick, that you've given.
Sure. So I'm working on another one right now. I'll take you back to May of 3 years ago, May of 2021. So I had my first call with Trisha. I shared with her what I was looking to do and what my goals were and everything. And I said, is that possible? She said, absolutely. I said, what do you think I should do? She said, the speaker salon. I said, what's speaker salon? And she said that you commute to New York City for 6 weeks in a row, and you get on stage with me and up to 10 other speakers, and you get my live direction and feedback on crafting a talk. She's the former executive producer of TEDx Lincoln Square. And she's done she used to be a dancer herself, a professional dancer, toured all over the world, and has a lot of experience working with and directing speakers. So we got to get on stage with her for 5 weeks in a row. And then the 6th week, the last week, is we got to perform our finished talks with stage direction, choreography, and like sound effects and everything in front of influencers, other TEDx organizers, and other people that can book us to speak. So you can see that, and you may have even seen that on my website. That's the Speaker Salon 2021, wearing my maroon suit, the red suit. That's the one that I talk about my accident and how it's important to be coachable and make sure you're having fun, you're keeping a sense of humor, which is really my MO. It's everything that I go through. So that was my first work with her. During that, she pitched the idea to me of what it would look like to work with her one-on-one. And she said she works with speakers to help them build out their speaker platform. So I said yes. I said I don't know where I'm going to get the money for that. However, I did. I applied for financing, and 6 days later, I sent her the money. And literally, it's been a wild ride since I did that, because she was the one that helped me launch Common Goal, helped me pull out of me, as I shared, the STEP system, and really for who I have to thank, my work in conjunction with her, to thank for all that I've accomplished and like all the speaking. Because prior to her, I had only spoke for 20 to 25 minutes max on stage, and now I'm speaking for 45 to 60 minutes, giving 45 to 60 minute keynotes, which her and I wrote together for Brain Injury Associations. So I spoke for the Brain Injury Association of Maryland last year. There was 350 people that registered, and doing that and seeing the people that approach me after, almost in tears or like emotional, that how much I really helped them. And they were like families that are going through traumatic brain injury and everything like that. Then the following month, April of last year, I spoke at the Dysphonia International Conference. And I have a close connection to both of these, because dysphonia, basically all dysphonia means is voice issue, voice problem. Okay. So they're the donation that I've donated to, and they support people who are going through, they help spread awareness, which I'm now doing as well. They help spread awareness about voice issues, because a lot of people don't know about voice issues. There's such limited funding because it's such all population that is affected by that. Then I spoke at a few virtual summits for Brain Injury Associations, their conferences, and I actually just confirmed that I'm going to be giving a 50-minute version of my keynote virtually for the Brain Injury Association of America. That's going to be later this year on November 12th. I think it's at 3 p.m. So I'm excited about that. Also along the same time, last week it was last week, right on the same time, I got confirmation that the Brain Injury Association Minnesota confirmed that they are going to have me speak in April of next year. I think it's April 12th, to give the same 50-minute version of my keynote. So it's just continuing to spread my message and get the word out there and see how many people we can help with the STEP system.
Congratulations, Nick. That's incredible. What an achievement.
Oh, thank you.
Now, you mentioned about the website, but just for the benefit of our audience, what's your website? And I understand that you're also giving away the STEP system for free on your website. How could they access it?
Sure. So what we covered today, Shihan, is just a 10,000 foot view of the STEP system.
Yeah.
If they go to nickprefontaine.com/STEP, they can download the entire STEP system for free today. And that's going to teach them all about support, trust, energy, and persistence.
That's great. I think a lot of people will benefit from that. So folks, go download that STEP system and I'm sure you'll benefit out of this. Now, are there any other applications of the STEP system aside from just helping people from trauma, which obviously is a massive thing and a benefit to those people, and coming out of, that kind of situation is obviously life-saving. But are there any other application use cases of this system? Can it be used like in a business scenario, for example, Nick, would it be applicable? Or are there elements from it which could be useful?
Absolutely. Right now, I am focused on helping with the STEP system, helping individuals with trauma to thrive with the rest of their lives. However, the applications are far-reaching. I apply it, as I said, now since I developed it, I can apply it to everything in my life. So the applications are far-reaching. And I think that's almost like in the future, like, all right, so for example, I was on a show, a podcast. It was for the audience was about event organizers and event producers that produce big events. So we were able to talk about how the STEP system could apply to them. And what was most important about the STEP system for them? So they had to just for that example, they had to make sure that number one, at the beginning, they have their support lined up, whether that's their coaches, their mentors, or whoever they're learning from to help set up their event. And then have that standby support. And then once they have that, they have to trust that once they take their first step, their next step is going to be available to them. And then especially when it comes to events, they have to make sure that they're not running on empty, because you can't pour from an empty cup, if that makes sense. They have to, and our company, like our family company, has run events as well all throughout the years. You have to make sure you're getting your sleep. You have to be doing your meditation, be doing, like I do Qigong in meditation, but you have to be doing those practices to help keep your energy high, especially during an event. Because if you wear yourself down and you always only sleep a few hours, which is the case for a lot of people that do events because they're all revved up, then you can't really affect anyone else if you're wearing yourself down like that. And then if you do that in that order, like if you make sure you're taking care of your support, trust, your energy, then in that order, as long as you're doing those three things, that will enable you to be persistent and continue to take your next step every day. So that's just one application that I shared with, I think his name was Rudy, earlier this year. However, the applications are far-reaching. For sure, you can apply it to anything. I see everything through the lens of the STEP system. Thanks
for sharing that, Nick. I think that's super useful. Now, if there's someone who wants to take it to the next level, do you undertake private coaching, consulting? What other offerings do you have?
So after the ebook, because there's a lot of information there, and it's free, and just because it's free doesn't mean there's not a ton of value in that. There is a ton of value in that. They actually have to apply it. However, once they've gone through that and read it and thought through how to go about applying that to their lives, we have the STEP video series, which is literally coaching videos for each letter of the STEP system: support, trust, energy, and persistence. So it's you get a video for each letter on how to apply it to your situation in your life. You have coaching emails to help you decipher and go along each step of the way. Each letter comes with a workbook. So support, trust, energy, and persistence. Each letter comes with your own personal workbook, and that's $37. So that's your next step from the ebook, is to do the STEP video series. And then after you've done both of those, then we can have a call for one-on-one consulting, how I can I can work with you one-on-one to kind of supercharge your application of the STEP system.
And how could anyone get in touch with you, Nick? Is it through the contact page on your website or any other details that you would like to share?
Sure. Same thing. They can find me at nickprefontaine.com/step. And they're able to also submit a message on there as well.
Cool. And before we end, I've got to ask this. So I see that you're also a 3 times best-selling author, and you were also named the top motivational speaker of 2022 by Yahoo Finance. Would you like to talk a bit about that before we end?
Sure. So all right, a few things here. So the 3-time best-selling author, because as I mentioned, I'm also, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this, Shihan. So I'm involved in a family real estate business still, and we have a coaching and a consulting business that we do deals. So not only do we do deals, like I was telling you about, non-conventionally without using our personal credit or big down payments, and then we're selling them on our rent own. Not only do we have our business, but we also partner with associates all over the country who we work with to set up the same systems, processes, and tools that we've instituted over the past 10 plus years to enable our business to get to where it is. So we want to help people replicate that all over the country. And the way you can find out more about that, if anything I said piqued your interest on how we buy and sell on terms, we like to call it, not getting big loans or big down payments or anything, you can check out our website. That's smartrealestatecoach.com. And if you scroll down a little bit on the homepage, you should be able to get registered for the free master's class. That's going to, again, I only covered a little bit of it, but that's going to teach you how we buy and sell on terms without using any credit or big down payments or any of our own money like that. And if by the end of the master's class, you are still interested, because it's not a fit for everyone, but if you are still interested at the end, you can take the next step. It'll be apparent. It'll be clear to you once you get to the end.
Thanks for sharing that, Nick. Is there any motivational, inspirational speaker that you regularly follow or listen to on a daily, weekly basis?
So I wouldn't say it's weekly, but my favorite one is Adam Carroll. Adam Carroll is he's a TEDx speaker, did a TEDx speaker on how he played Monopoly with his kids, with real money. And the TEDx talk went viral. And now he has his own business where he speaks, and the reason I say him, we've had him at our events virtually for years. And last year was the first year we held in 2023. We held our in-person QLS Live after years of doing since COVID, doing the all virtual, everything virtual. We had our in-person event. He spoke at that. I already thought he was my favorite speaker before I saw him in person. But once I saw him in person, I was just like, I was blown away. I was every time it's just like I'm like transfixed. He's absolutely amazing.
Thanks, Nick. And aside any recommended books, I know you already mentioned one, but is there any other book that you would suggest who's interested in this subject to read and learn more?
I get this question quite often, and it comes out differently in the moment because I have different recommendations for different purposes. I think what will help everyone best in the moment right now is the book that really got me started down this whole journey was Frequency by Penny Pierce.
Frequency, okay.
So she has a whole series of it's very deep. It's all about your personal vibration and energy and everything. She has a whole series, but that's that's one of the earlier ones, and that's what really started me on this whole upward spiral, if you will.
Thanks for sharing that as well, Nick. Any final remarks? And if you can also share your social media handles and how people can follow you.
Sure. So I'm on what I'm on right now is Facebook, just my name, Nick Prefontaine, and I'm also on LinkedIn. So that's what I have for social media. And then I'd encourage, lastly, for like closing thoughts here, I'd encourage anyone to, whatever they're going through, to start. So do something. There are so many people nowadays, and Shihan, you and I were talking about this last week. There are so many people who are frozen, are paralyzed with fear, or overanalyzing and just don't know what to do. It doesn't matter what you do, just start, just do something, because once you do something, once you take your first step, your next step's always going to be available to you. You
That's
gotta trust that. You gotta trust that.
That's so true and valuable, Nick. I think a lot of authors, including Jim Quick, who is a brain coach, who had a similar brain injury when he was young, also talks about simple, small steps that you need to take, and it should not be that you just get overwhelmed with looking at the big picture and the overall result that you're expecting. But it's just that small, simple step, and its persistence is part of your framework as well, right? So, absolutely, I think that's the way to go. Whether you're having issues with your business, whether it's your personal lives, or anything, whether it's health, wealth, whatever it is, I think just take a small, simple step today and keep being persistent. So thank you, Nick. Thank you very much for coming on the show. I personally thoroughly enjoyed this, listening to your story and how we overcame this battle. I think it's been an incredible journey, and I hope thousands and thousands of people, I wish that they listen to you more and more. And thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me, Shihan.